Brother Henry DeBernardo was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he received his elementary and secondary education. He graduated from Holy Cross College near Boston in 1973. He pursued postgraduate studies at Temple University and Howard University. I say this all the time as a pun, that we don't hold that against him, that he's been to all these universities. He has always been heavily involved in the social and cultural affairs of his community. Beginning in 1976, he joined in an inner-city housing crusade in Philadelphia that became so intense that it received national attention and even international attention. Since those early organizing days, Brother DeBernardo has focused more of his attention to the issues of reparations and land claims, which he views as critical survival issues for the African community around the country and the world. He has written several major unpublished papers to this effect. A journalist by trade, Brother DeBernardo has worked for an African publication in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia Observer for the past decade, where he has a weekly opinion column that touches on many issues affecting the African community. He also conducts major investigative series for the newspaper. In 1995, he produced a 5-part investigative report on the scandal-ridden Philadelphia and national prison systems and the U.S. military role in unethical research on prisoners. The report led to the resignation of top personnel at a local major university that was involved in this research. So he's like what they call, what's that term they use? I can't hear you. No, a person who does that inside a organization is, no, not informer. No. Y'all giving all these negative terms. Yeah, not bell ringing. What's that? Whistleblower. Work with me. Work with me. That's what he is, a whistleblower. And check this out. Back to my theme. Ghosts. You whistle in the dark. Remember when Stymie would be in the dark? First thing they would do, that will, ease their pain of the ghost that may be involved. And that's what the brother is. He's a whistleblower. Brother DeBernardo is also a promoter who stages major lectures in Philadelphia involving national figures. He also conducts his own lecture series called African Cosmic Awakening, which has been featured prominently in that city, Philadelphia, and New York and New Jersey. And I ask you to give him the warm... Now, one thing about us, we have to realize that a lot of us got rejection issues and also abandonment issues. So when somebody comes forth to you, you don't know what they have because you're not doing therapy on them, so you don't understand. I do therapy all the time, and because people are strong and they are forthcoming when they come through in public, socially, a lot of hidden stuff is not really dealt with, because they still have issues maybe of rejection because their mother and father didn't acknowledge them when they were coming up, or they didn't get the kind of appreciation they thought they should have as a child. So they still work on those issues, don't we all? So therefore, everybody wants to be accepted or approved, and not in a codependent way. So when I ask you to do that and I give you those about 4 or 5 A's, to give this person coming on, that's my intent. To allow that person to feel that you are accepted, you are approved, you are acknowledged, you are accepted and appreciated. So that's what I say when I tell you to do that in your applause. It's another A, to the person coming forth. And I want you to do that for Brother Henry DeBernardo, our next first speaker.
I want to thank Brother Shabazz again for that warm, undeserved introduction. And I want to also give thanks to the Creator and the Orishas and the ancestors for allowing us to be here today, because without their power, it certainly wouldn't be. I need to ask one technical question. Is that mic available again like it was yesterday? Okay, great. Testing. And I want to thank all the brothers and sisters who came out yesterday and who are here today for part 2. This particular lecture will be almost a continuation of the one we did yesterday, but it will be a specific focus on a major area that is a very ancient science that has not been dealt with for many generations, except in very esoteric schools and very secret places. You have places like Lhasa, Tibet, places like Angkor Wat, places like Bimini, Machu Picchu, where there was a great deal of this kind of so-called, quote, esoteric work, unquote. And even down through the Middle Ages, there were the Druids in Europe who did a lot of this work, and their work was left down to a lot of the Masons. The Knights Templars did a lot of work on the grid systems around the planet based on the science that they brought out of Kemet, and also the native shamans had always done a great deal of work around this issue of the grids. So today we're going to go back a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the grid system on this planet, the power grid system on the Earth, and how the power grid system is used by various peoples around the planet for purposes of growth and development. And also we're going to talk about the second half of this lecture is going to be about predictions 2000. In the newspaper that I write in, Philadelphia New Observer, every year it's become a tradition for me to do predictions in the paper at the end of the year and the beginning of the year. And when I first started doing this, it was a joke. And a lot of people took it as a joke. But then I started noticing that a lot of the stuff I was writing in the paper was coming out. So we started doing it annually, and now it's to a point where quite a few people in Philadelphia really do go out of their way to get that paper. So actually it's a rather small paper. It carries much more weight than it looks like, because if you saw the paper, it looks like almost like a little tabloid, neighborhood tabloid. But it's grown over the last 20 years into a very powerful paper in the city of Philadelphia, and people are like really riveted to these predictions that I make, because in the last 3 or 4 years in particular, I've been saying things that have been like really on point. For instance, last 2 years ago, I talked about April of 1999, and I said watch out for April 1999, because there definitely would be a tremendous amount of terrorism in the United States in April 99, and we all know what happened in April 99 in the United States with Columbine High School. So this year we're going to be talking about April of 2000. Yesterday, for those of y'all who were here, how many of y'all were here yesterday? So we got about half of our folks back. We talked very briefly about the April of Richard Noon. Richard Noon's book 5/5/2000 talks about 5/5/2000, what would happen at that time, and I mentioned that he kind of missed the boat a little bit. Okay, bro. He kind of missed the boat a little bit because he based his predictions on the Gregorian calendar, which is a misnomer. The Gregorian calendar is based on Vatican codices. All right, and it's also based primarily on the old Julian calendar, which was set up by Julius Caesar. And it's created all kind of problems in terms of agri-sciences, agriculture, planting and harvesting, seasons, rotations. There's a lot of problems that have been epidemic all over the world because of this Gregorian calendar system that we use. And in many parts of the third world, people still do not recognize this system. As a matter of fact, in China did not recognize the Gregorian calendar until 1913. And in many parts of the third world, people use a 12-day system rather than a 12-hour system rather than a 24-hour system. Okay. In other words, they rotate on a sun up to sundown day rather than this 24-hour thing that we're hooked on. And as I said yesterday, it pulls us out of sync because our bodies, our DNA structure, based on the melanin structure, as manifested in the pineal gland, and what Richard King calls the black dot, is calibrated to a natural earth pulse system. So this artificial system that these Europeans have placed on us pulls us out of sync, and that's why a lot of black people go crazy. It's why in a lot of the major cities around the country you see black people walking around the streets talking to themselves, because we can't deal with this Gregorian thing. We don't know that it's the Gregorian thing that's pulling us out of whack, pulling us out of sync, but that's part of the a major part of the problem. But we'll talk about Richard Noon a little bit in the second half. And we'll talk about that 5/5/2000. But like I said, folks up in Milwaukee have me coming up in Milwaukee next month to talk about that book and what's going on with the ecology, because the major thrust of that book was about his sister from Milwaukee. You from Milwaukee? Where's the sister from Milwaukee? Oh, okay. Oh, right on. But she has her right arm and left arm. That's right. Right on. And we'll be talking about how he got it wrong, because his projection was that the ecology would be thrust out of kilter. It would be knocked out of kilter starting on the date 5/5/2000. And when I was talking to the brother from Milwaukee who is bringing me in, Earl Baker, he said, look, I want you up here in time for that date. I want you here before that date because I want you to talk about the ecology. I said, well, brother, what date, are we talking about? He said, well, I want to bring you in the end of April in time for 5/5/2000. I said, I think you're a little bit late, because you shouldn't be talking about 5/5/2000. You really should be talking something like April 5th, 4/5/2000. Okay, so we'll get into that in the second half. But first we want to deal with the grids. Okay, but even before we do that, the sister here did a beautiful libation. And we want to thank her for that. And the reason why I embraced you was because I wanted to transfer the energy. Because in effect what you did was you did our libation for us. Said it was a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And by that transference of energy, see, this is all science. If you know science, they know how to deal with these kind of things. You transfer energy, with an embrace like that. So in other words, it's like a extension cord. Okay, an extension cord of etherical power. So therefore, our libation is done. All right. So I shade to that. But in the first half, I want to deal with the grid system. This is very few materials out there. There's a lot of people running around the country now trying to find materials on the grid systems and how we can use these systems. A lot of us don't know that the United States military has a lot of their bases. They spent billions and billions of dollars on their base, especially in the Southwest, in those Arizona and New Mexico desert territories around the grid systems. So the United States government is very, very serious about these grids. They've done a tremendous amount of research around the grids, and the fact that they built dozens of especially Air Force bases around these grids speaks to the fact that these people don't take ancient science for a joke. We do, because we're trained to reject everything that belongs to our root. Everything that comes out of our root, we're programmed to automatically reject it, because we're programmed to label all those sciences voodoo. That's a code word that they use to spook us away from our own roots. Okay, and they do that very deliberately, because it's very important for them to keep us away from the sciences, the ancient sciences that we used to use, to keep them in check. Okay, so that they can run amok around the planet. But slowly, the information is starting to get out. A few of the beasts themselves are even writing books about the earth sciences, and there's whole catalogs now of earth science books earth science magazines. There's a whole genre of literature now about earth sciences and the grids, magnetic pulses, the earth chakras, the whole thing. And now it's even gotten a step further now, and they're opening all kinds of stores now dealing with a lot of these materials. And now you're starting to see the major corporations are just now getting into even the medicinal field. Like GNC, for instance, is a major corporate effort to capture or at least get a grip on the herbal market because they want to be able to not only capture that market economically, but they also want to tinker with those herbs and reprocess them and put them back out in disguised form so that you'll be taking the same poisons that you get at the pharmacy under different label. So it's very, very important for you to be able to get to the correct sources of herbs, anything dealing with naturopath, herbal sciences, or herbal lifestyle, because there's definitely a move around the whole planet. First it was the United Nations, and now it's the FDA have been working with the United Nations to shut down a lot of the independent herbal distributors so that they can set up these corporate structures, okay, to capture the market and to put this poison out, under the name of herbology. And it's especially important that you really get into the herbs now, and not as a matter of medicinal practice, because these people are tinkering with the grid systems around the world in such a way now. For instance, they have this thing called the HAARP system, the High Aerial Frequency Auroral Research Project, which is a United States Navy Air Force joint project that was originally based in Alaska. Now it's worldwide, where they're actually manipulating the ionosphere to first control people's brain waves, and also to change the electromagnetic spectrum of the Earth itself. And it's an extremely dangerous thing what they're doing, because eventually they are going to cause a rupture of this planet, and they're going to cause a lot of these volcanoes that you see, like Mount Etna, Mount Pele or Soufriere down in Montserrat, Popo in Mexico. A lot of these volcanoes that are blasting full strength now are doing that because in the Philippines, I think Pinatubo is going back up again. A lot of these volcanoes are blowing up now. There's the sister from Milwaukee. Right on. Are blowing now because they are tinkering with this military system. And they really don't know what they're doing. What they've done is they've gone into the ancient texts, they've gone back to the tablets, and they've gone back to the stones and bones to try to restructure what they know was in Atlantis in terms of the crystal matrices that was set up to control the planet. Okay, that's what HAARP is. HAARP is an effort to recreate the sciences that we had 1 million years ago. All right? But what they're doing in the process is they're slowly destroying the planet. Or not, that's a little inaccurate. Let me take that back. They're not destroying the planet. What they're doing is they're torturing the planet. It's like it's almost the same thing if you took a man and sat him in an electric chair and juiced him up. Okay, that's exactly what HAARP is. It's like putting a planet in an electric chair. Okay, and it's causing massive disruptions all over the planet. And a lot of these people that you see walking around with their eyes dilating and babbling, a lot of gobbledygook, a lot of that is due to this program. All right, and they have slowly been increasing the calibration, the wave length of this HAARP system, as they're bringing online new antenna fields. There's antenna fields being set up all over the planet now. I think the latest count is they have at least 15 of these aerial fields set up on every continent. Used to be just Alaska. The first one was set up in Alaska, not too far from Anchorage, about 15 years ago. and the calibration was very low, but now the calibration is up maybe 3 or 4 times that with these new antenna fields being brought online. And with each new antenna system being brought online on different continents, that is causing the ionosphere to go out of kilter a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So eventually, over a 25, 50-year period, if this program is still in place, it actually could cause massive weather anomalies all over the planet. We could see tidal waves that have been totally unheard of before, I mean, of biblical proportions. We could see weather destruction of biblical proportions based on this program that the United States military, in conjunction with NATO, is producing. That system is based on the grid systems. They have calibrated the HAARP system to attenuate itself to the Earth grid system that the ancients used. And they know that all the pyramids, I talked about the pyramids and the mounds yesterday, all the pyramids and the mounds built around the whole planet, there are thousands of these pyramids and mounds everywhere, on every continent, and under the water, in many of all of the oceans and seas. They know that the Earth grid system is part and parcel to the building and the placement, the location of these pyramids and these mounds. And that's why they're constantly digging into these mounds, dinkering with them, and trying to find more of them, because they know that the more they can identify the mounds and the pyramids, then it gives them a correct location of the magnetic field system, or the grid systems. So you can think of the grid systems on the Earth the same way you think of the meridian lines in the human body. Okay? And the Chinese have been up on this for many, many, many generations. The Chinese are one of the few people that never let the science die. And as I mentioned before, the Chinese only accepted the Gregorian calendar in 1913. And that's one of the reasons why. Because they understood these ancient sciences and the importance of keeping the ancient sciences in place. Because there have to be guardians. There have to be somebody on this planet to watch these pyramids and mounds and make sure that they're maintained in proper order, so that the Earth doesn't spin off its axis, okay, or that the calibration doesn't go wrong, which is almost the same thing. All right, but these beasts are busy, constantly jabbing, poking at the Earth and the magnetic structure in order to basically destroy civilization. Okay, so if you're talking about, now I don't even like using the term Illuminati anymore, because it's difficult. There's all kinds of problems with the whole concept. But I think it's much easier just to use, like I said yesterday, use the word beast. Okay, it's a lot simpler, a lot easier, rolls off the tongue a lot easier. So I think it's a lot a better term. But that's what this whole bestial thing is all about. You know, destruction of civilization, for the sake of destruction of civilization. You know, it's really not more complicated than that. You know, there's been a lot of people through that, all kind of theories about what the beast is doing and why the beast does it and how the beast does it. But it's really not a technical equation that we're talking about. It's not a technical problem that we're trying to define here. You know, we're talking about destruction for the sake of destruction. That is the main task of the beast. That is the main vision that the beast sees before himself. Destruction for the purpose of destruction. All right? So therefore, whatever he does that's totally illogical to us doesn't even matter to him. It's inconsequential, you know, that they can do mayhem and murder and slaughter all over the world. I mean, so what if they're putting the HAARP system into place, knowing full well that it's destroying the ionosphere? I mean, so what? If it helps to destroy what is here naturally on the Earth, then it suits their purposes just fine.
Destroying or manipulating?
Well, their thought process is destruction. But they cannot destroy what they did not build, okay, or create. Because, see, they're not creators, they're manipulators, okay? So therefore, thank you, brother. So therefore, what they are doing is basically an illusion. But see, we buy into the hype and we believe that they had the power of destruction because, you know, we are proselytized. That's a good word to use. if you want to get away from the idea of attacking particular religions. Just use the word proselytize, because that's what all the major religions in the world do. You might even think of the word prostitute, but the more technical term is proselytize, which means go in search of converts. Project your message. In the Catholic Church, they call it propagation. They have an office for the propagation of the faith. All right, that's really what you, in the simplest terms, you can restate that in. You just say PR. Okay, proselytizing is PR work designed to blow people's minds and make people suck up the hype that their thing is the only thing that's right. Okay, so therefore, if you don't believe their thing, then off with your head. That's the way proselytization works. That's the long and the short of it. If you believe, fine. If you don't believe, die. All right? And that's what proselytizing is all about. Okay, so these people have come up with these insane, what we think of as insane, but they think of as perfectly logical, okay, systems to basically destroy civilization around the planet. Okay, because chaos is order to them. That's one of their chief logos. One of the chief logos of the beast is chaos is order. Okay, in other words, you rule through chaos. And one of the analogies that I like to bring up all the time, I like to say, all of us, well, some of us, who are nature freaks, when we're little kids, we get a little ant colony. Most nature freaks at some point in their life had an ant colony. And if he wasn't rich enough to go out and buy one of these little things in one of these nature stores or, pet stores, then you just can get a bottle, a big-sized bottle. I'm sure a lot of us have done this. And you fill it up with a lot of dirt. And you go and find yourself a whole bunch of ants. And you take the ants and stick them in the bottle and shut the lid. Bang, you got an ant colony. And you watch them. If if you're curious enough or you're scientific enough to understand the processes that the ants go through, then you learn to leave the bottle alone. Okay? It's important to leave the bottle alone so you can watch the ants build their civilization inside the bottle, correct? And you can see that by just looking through the glass, because they tunnel their way through the dirt. And as time goes by, their tunnels become more structured and more rigid and fixed, so that you can see they create little highways. And at certain points along the highways, they create little burrows, okay, where they do different things. All right? And over a period of weeks or months, you'll see that they systematize this so well inside the bottle, inside the jar, that they actually divvy up commands. They set up a command structure so that they'll have some ants do this and they'll have some ants do that. Some ants will go on this side of the bottle, some ants will go on that side of the bottle. But if you're a beast, and see, it's not a matter of the blood as much as it is the vibration. The vibration is everything. You go to the Hopi reservations, the Navajo reservations, the Cherokee, Iroquois, Miami reservations, they'll teach you these things. If you go to the Ashanti, the Mandingo, the Dogon, the Zulu, they'll teach you these things, that, the vibration is the most important thing. All right, and that's why in ancient Egypt, the heart was more important than the mind, because the basic, your signature vibration comes out of your heart. That's why my mother used to always tell me when I was a kid, don't know so much. And I never understood what she was talking about, because she would always beat my ass if I came home with C's or D's. And I said, well, hell, you trying to tell me to get A's and B's, but yet, you tell me don't know so much. And she would look at me and walk away. And it wasn't until much, much later in life, after she was long gone, that I finally figured out that what she was really saying is the knowing doesn't come up here, the knowing comes here. Okay, don't know so much. Feel more. Don't know so much, feel more. And that's why, it's very, very important that we understand ourselves as an intuitive people. We're not a logical people. And that's why I said before, we don't work well in their job systems. We don't work well in their systems, period, because we're not logical. That's why people are always calling us niggers. They say, oh, that dumb nigga can't do nothing right. I can't program that nigga to do shit right. What's wrong with this dumb nigga? You know, you got to call him a nigga. It's stupid. You know, you put the manual in front of him, he still get it wrong. You know? We put them through all these tests in school, and they still can't pass the damn SAT. We give them all kind of prep programs, and they still can't get past the 700 level. You know? What's the problem with these niggas? They're a bunch of niggas. You know? But they don't understand that we're intuitive. We don't operate when they want us to operate. We don't jump when they want us to jump. We jump when we feel like jumping. When we feel like moving, when we feel like doing things, that's when we get it done best. And they found that out just by studying athletes. They studied people like Jordan, you know, because they know that these brothers syncopate, get into their rhythm, get into their flow at certain points. You know? So if they've flown at a point, you know, they get off. If they're not, they don't score a point that day, and they foul out. You know? And the man is sitting over there saying, man, we trained you, man. You know, we had you at 1,000 practices, and you're still getting it wrong. But practice don't have nothing to do with, you know, getting off. You know, when you get off, you get off. If you practice, so what? Practice don't have nothing to do with that. But they're trained, the coaches are trained to assume and believe that you can only make that nigga jump because you put him through a drill. They're logical. Okay, they're technical. Linear. All right? Also, by the way, as a matter of fact, the brother here, Dwayne, is assisting me with these tapes. So when we do the break, or when we finish up, I want you to come up here and buy these tapes. Now, look, I'm amazed to see how many of y'all got the tapes, and I want to thank y'all. Because everybody in the country got these tapes. So I know I got an FBI file that thick, you know. But now the brother putting out the CDs, so I know I'm through now. But we still want you to come up afterwards and purchase the CDs and the videotapes. All right, help the brother out, you know, help us out, because, like I said before, it's a struggle with us. You know what the Jews do? It's interesting. If you study these Jews, or the Koreans, or the Japanese, or the Irish, or the Italians closely, you know, I like to study them from a distance. But if you study them carefully enough, you'll see that they use their own syndicated systems to keep their people going. So they interrelate with other people to a certain point. But then the rest of the time, their syndication kicks in. You know, so each one of these little groups have what we call a mob. You know, some people call it syndication. All right? The government, the FBI, calls it a syndicate. All right? But syndicates are maintained by these people and have been maintained for many thousands of years, because when their people get weak at the center or at any point, the others rush to that point to prop it up. We don't do that. We're the only ones who don't do that. Okay? So that if a Korean merchant, if a Korean merchant or a Jewish merchant is failing, other Jews or other Koreans will come and give them money and buy their products, even though they might hate their guts. They might hate their guts, call their mamas all kind of dirty names, but they'll go in that store and buy that product and then throw it in the trash or give it to somebody else. That's called syndication. We don't understand that principle. You know, circulate your dollars. We hear the principle, economic principle, circulate the dollar. Our dollar circulates 1/2 time in our community. In the Japanese community, their dollars circulate 9 times before it leaves their community. That's because they syndicate it. In other words, they practice enforced at a certain level. We don't do that because we believe in multiculturalism. You know, we think it's cool, you know, to be with the other ones because that's what we're programmed to believe, and that's what we're programmed to do. All right, but let's get back to the grids. You know, I went to one of these malls around here this morning, and I like to go through these bookstores wherever I can sniff them out, because you never know what you're going to find in these B stores. And I found this little magazine called Dig. I'd never even heard of this before. Okay, But you see what's on the front cover, right? I thought it was fascinating. Whenever I see this kind of stuff, I snatch it quick, because I don't know if it's going to stay on the shelf very long. But on the front cover, Dig Magazine, first anniversary issue, April-May 2000 edition, is the pyramids at Giza Plateau, and behind it, on the front of it, is the logo, Pyramid Power. It says, find out how and why ancient cultures build their amazing monuments. And then as I went into the inside of it, they had pictures here of the pyramids in Chichen Itza in Mexico, which were built by the Olmecs. They are now starting to finally emit. Okay? And then they have a whole series, a whole huge article, okay, called Pyramid Power. All right? Thousands of years after they were built, the pyramids of ancient Egypt and other past civilizations are still the most amazing and inspiring structures on Earth. It's amazing to the beast because they haven't figured it out yet. They even went and got some Japanese and sent them over to Egypt to figure it out, because they said the Japanese are the smartest little niggas on the planet. And if anybody can figure this shit out, it's going to be them. So they said ship them over there and let them do the math calculations and break this stuff down so we can use it and manipulate it. And guess what? Guess what happened? The Japanese went over there and they tinkered and dinkered at the pyramids so much and fumbled and fooled around so much. Guess what? They got uninvited by the Egyptian government. And the Egyptians said, okay, you've been here 6 months. You ain't found nothing. Here's your tickets. Here's your airline tickets. Bye. They sent the Australians over there. They sent the Germans. They sent the Germans over there. The super technologist Germans over there. They did worse than the Japanese. They can't figure these pyramids out because a science was employed based on the Earth magnetic system to put these things up. So here's a whole slew. You probably can't. I'll leave this up here after we finish. You can look at this. But there's a whole slew of pyramids in different parts of the world. They have a picture of the Great Sun Pyramid outside Mexico City. This pyramid in Mexico City is to the exact astronomical and mathematical specifications of the Giza Plateau Pyramid. Exact, down to the last square inch. Okay, so you're talking about two pyramids built on the exact opposite sides of the planet. How was this done? This is called science. Okay, I'm not talking about that stuff you get in high school. This is science. Okay, this is what we feel. This is something that was felt out. Okay, and the reason why they can't figure out how those pyramids got built and how those 20-ton blocks got up at the top of the pyramid, and why Machu Picchu, which also has 20-ton blocks, was built at the top of the Andes, and why the massive temples were built at the top of Grand Teton in Wyoming, exact identical replica of Machu Picchu in Peru, is because they don't understand that we have access to what they would call quantum sciences that they still can't even figure out. We're talking about sciences that are into the 25th, 29th, 31st century. These are sciences that our people had thousands of years ago. So in other words, these people are not promulgating advanced science.